Hi everyone, Adam Steele from Hotpoll Studios here, and today this is a Q&A video of questions sent to me by our patrons through Patreon. This is something I want to do more regularly. It's one of the reward tiers on Patreon that if you help us out, keep the lights on, keep all this stuff running, then one of the things is that you get to ask us questions and we answer them as best we can. I say we, I mean me. So, let's roll the intro and then get right to it. Okay, first couple of questions are from Erwin. I'm going to put these on the screen, but I'm reading these off my phone. So, one from Erwin. Hello, Adam. Hello. In an unboxing video, I saw that you bought a Behringer UMC 404 HD interface. I would really like to know if you have tips for use of the interface in combination with Reaper, because I use this interface too, and of course Reaper. If you can't fill a whole review, maybe something for the Q&A, yes. So, I did get a Behringer UMC 404 HD, which might seem like a strange choice. But I got it specifically for the other computer, which is over there, which I will put a little shot in here. That's the streaming computer, and I'm using that Behringer interface because it fits nicely and neatly in the rack below. And that usually has up to 4 inputs, depending on what I'm doing, that only go to the live recording. I'm using it right now, actually. This shotgun microphone here, this Sennheiser 416, is going on a long cable round to the Behringer. The reason that I'm doing that is then no matter what I do with the computer when I'm mixing, in a live stream, tracking, any sort of weird and wonderful routing, because I sometimes, you never know what's going to happen in a live session. I end up setting things up rather strangely sometimes there. And I wanted to make sure that the actual live stream and recording were entirely separate. And the Behringer new Midas preamps, very clear, very clean, don't really add their own character, which for that, specifically with it being a non-musical application, was very much what I wanted. The other input there is using the Line 6 G90 wireless system, which I'm actually using with a lav mic on a wireless pack. So when I go in the other room, that's what I switch to. And the other two inputs I used for a video which is upcoming very soon about the Adam S2Vs, which I have behind me on loan from Adam Audio, which I'm giving a whirl. And so the only advice I can give with Reaper is make sure you've got the latest drivers installed from the Behringer website for it. And that's about it. Try not to clip the inputs, because that's the same as anything else. Do get a separate DI box if you need DI for anything, because that's just good general advice. And just don't expect the best you'll ever get, although it's clean and clear. And in a situation like that, that's what I need. So that's all I can really give as advice. Another question from Erwin. How do I add information like artist and title when I want to render a project to WAV or MP3? So this is something that's been added fairly recently into Reaper, and I'm doing a separate part for the Ultimate Reaper guide on this. And this is called metadata. Metadata is the information that's embedded. There's a little bit can be embedded in WAV files, but generally it's not really read very often. MP3s and things like M4As, which are the iTunes format, far more often you will see metadata. That's under file and metadata, and you can add what you want in there. I generally find that if you add stuff into WAV files, it's a bit of a lost cause. Nobody's really going to read it. A lot of domestic and consumer stuff that could read WAV files won't pick up on that data anyway, whereas MP3s, from the beginning, most programs like Windows Media Player, iTunes, all that kind of stuff, have been designed to read all that information and bring that up for you. Although actually separately, I just render things like MP3s to send to a band without any metadata. Then I use a program called MP3 tag. MP3 tag gives you all the options, and also if you have artwork for a specific MP3, you can drag and drop that into MP3 tag, and that will embed it inside the MP3. So if you play that in another player, it should come up with the artwork. It's free, it's pretty cool. Check it out, MP3 tag. Oh, lots of questions from Danny Boy Studios. I don't know if I'll answer all of these. When can we expect an updated video tour of the studio? Good question, because I have been changing and updating a lot of stuff recently. The short version is probably the end of the year, because I'm still playing with things, I'm still tweaking things, and I'm very close to having the studio as I would like it, but we're not quite there yet. The amp collection is growing, the cab collection is growing, the streaming PC is almost done. As you can see, I've just changed the monitors behind me. Might be doing a bit of playing around with the acoustic treatment, although it's fairly good in here now. What you don't see off camera is the rest of the room. It looks like it's just acoustic foam everywhere. It's not. That's just what the camera sees. So yeah, there's a lot going on. There's lots of small changes, but because of the whole, global situation, things are moving slower than I'd like. My video production process has often been constrained. Okay, so what is Liam's role at Hotpoll? We know he's there and at the weekly podcast, just don't know what he actually does there. Fair question. So mostly Hotpoll Studios is me and Liam, who you will see on the podcast. Liam is my best friend and he's also our business manager. So he deals with, unsurprisingly, a lot of things that are off camera, like making sure that I'm on the right track with trying to get videos done on time, making sure things don't get forgotten, talking to other businesses about potential collaborations, that kind of thing. Liam's role in the studio may be growing over time, but he's definitely the business guy. We're working on a new website at the moment, and that's something that Liam is doing because I don't have the time, and he has the up-to-date expertise in that side of things. He's very much the marketing side, and I'm the kind of do stuff and make noise kind of side. What is your ultimate goal for the studio and or the channel over the next year, next 5 years? Honest answer, no idea. Not that I'm aimless per se, but the last year alone, everything has changed dramatically for me. I now do this full time. I don't take bands into the studio at all at the moment for obvious reasons. This is being filmed at the end of 2020 if you're watching this later on. And now I can focus on working with bands that I like, and producing content where I get to play with gear, and the bands that I want to bring in are the kind of bands who are also interested in playing with new gear and new toys, and that it will inspire them to then get the best performances. I definitely want to do more of that next year. Just grow the viewership. I'm still convinced that there are loads of people out there who would love to watch what I'm doing, who for whatever reason haven't been made aware of our existence yet. So if you do know someone who you think would enjoy watching what we do, feel free to give them a nudge and point them in the right direction. Favourite snare drum you've recorded? Ooh. Probably the one that I have in the storeroom. I'm just going to grab it. This is my Slingerland Radio King, but it's a Concert King from 1948, roughly, and it's 15 by 8, which, if you know anything about drums, that's huge. And it's got the biggest, deepest sound. I don't know if it's in tune. But I've got an Evans calf tone on here. It's a very dark sounding drum. I do need to put some... I think I need to put a brighter snare bottom on there to try and compensate for the fact that it's so big. But this, if we're ever doing any ballads or any vintage work, usually the snare that a drummer has won't fit right. We put this in there and it's got its own inbuilt dampener. And when it's dampened... sounds absolutely massive, especially with the microphones and then the compression and that kind of thing. It sounds like you are exploding things. It's brilliant. You can also tune it a lot deeper than that. If you go too much higher than that with that particular snare, it does start to strain a little. Could you expand the studio? Marty asks. Are there more rooms in the cellar to use? I mean, 2 questions in one there. There is a storeroom that I use just off to the side, but I kind of want to keep that as a storeroom. It's quite small. I do have, well, potentially, in the future, a room above this, which is nice and big, which I really like recording drums in. But that's on the ground floor. You can, if you're not playing particularly loudly, you can hear outside noise bleeding in. It's also a bit close to the main road and also a bit close to the top floor. You know, it's not specifically designed for recording, although, you know, if we grow in future, that may be an option. I've certainly done little clips in there before. I did a video ages ago about how vocal sound can be affected by the room you're in, and that included that room up there. So there's every possibility that I could expand up there, but right now there's just no need. I've got plenty of space in here. On a dream budget, what studio monitors would you like to try? Have you guys seen those PMC things that look like a guitar amp full stack? They're like an 8x10 super tweeter monster of a thing. I'd love a pair of those if money was no object. But then in this room, I would have to put so much bass trapping in, I think, to make that really viable, that this room would probably shrink to half its size. So, I mean, probably the biggest I would reasonably get in here is something like the Adam S3H's, or maybe some of the bigger ATC midfields. Anything beyond that is, you know, I'd be looking at working in a different room. One from Acoustic. When someone sends you a song to mix and the tracks were recorded too loud, do you try and make do with what they sent you and risk your mixing record be tarnished? Or tell them to re-record it at lower volumes and risk them going somewhere else to have it mixed? Especially when the work of this nature is limited or non-existent in my area because of the situation. Well, that depends what you mean by too loud. If the sound levels coming in are really high but there's no clipping, that's not actually an issue, because you should be able in any DAW really to just grab the tracks and just bring their overall volume down to the gain stage that you are working at. I know that in Logic, for instance, there's a plugin you can put in called Gain that does nothing except for louder and quieter, so you just pull the gain down until it's right. If things are clipping, though, you can ask yourself questions. Am I going to process this sound in such a way that the clipping will not be audible? Is this a style of music where this is a problem or not? Like, if you're trying to mix classical music, for example, and there's clipping on the signal, that's probably not going to fly, because you're going to keep that mix really clean, really transparent, and anything like clipping is going to come through very quickly. Whereas on the complete other end of the scale, if you're mixing something like industrial metal, like early 9 Inch Nails type things, and the vocal's got clipping on it, So what? Clip it harder, push it further. Maybe take the volume of each track down, even though you'll still be able to hear the clipping. Then use more distortion if you like. It's genre dependent, so I can't say one way or the other for every specific situation. But yeah, if what you're going to do is going to result in something that you wouldn't be comfortable putting out, don't put it out. Talk to the artists and don't just flatly refuse. Just give them your reasoning. Just tell them, look, I would love to mix this, but there are problems with what you have sent me that mean it's not something that is fixable, and as a result, it's something that will sound bad no matter what I do. Therefore, before you've done any kind of work, you've set expectations. And then they've got two choices then. If they go somewhere else, they go somewhere else. But for me, integrity is quite important. And, I'd rather live off those 10-cent cans of beans for a little while and consistently put out good work than start to put out bad work, because as soon as you get a reputation for bad work, nobody wants to pay you any money. And then that's just a downward spiral. You may as well, if you can produce quality of this level, you can charge at this level, and then if that level costs twice as much as the bad stuff, you only need to do half as much of the work. You at that point don't need to say yes to every job, although getting there is the difficult part. But yes, if you've not got ideal tracks to work with, quite often we can make concessions. If something's, a little quiet, has a bit of a noise floor, sometimes I'll work with it. Sometimes there are small issues we can get past, but if something is definitely wrong and is not fixable, don't try and fix it. Send it back. There's also every chance that the artist will listen to your measured response, look at the stuff and go, oh yeah, now I see and hear what you're talking about. I understand now. Hold on while we re-record. Another good one from Al. Upgrading my computer for audio production is moving higher up on the priority list. Thoughts about getting one ready to go straight from Sweetwater seems a little expensive, or should I just get someone local to custom build me one? In my experience, and I build quite a few computers, especially in the studio space, components are components. It doesn't matter who makes a computer, as long as they're competent, as long as they know what they're doing and you trust them. There's no point in getting some audio specific computer as opposed to just one that's the exact same spec from a store, or building one yourself out of the same components if they are the same components and you know how to competently build a computer, which honestly isn't that hard. It's not like it was in the early 90s where you needed to know how to switch jumpers and pull metal pins out to configure things. Everything that you can buy now, if you buy this processor works with this motherboard, you slam them together, you put some thermal paste on, slap a cooler on, it will work. There might be the odd exception, but they're the really weird, rare cases. And again, you can always ask people on the internet for advice. You can always, it's specific advice. It's always good when you're going to build your own computer. You don't have to come to me, you can go to other tech forums and just say, this is a build that I'm putting together. Do you think this is all going to work together? And generally the answer will be yes, and if it is, you get the pieces, you put them together like Lego. There are building tutorials out there, and you go. You get a USB stick with a Windows install on, which you can do for free through your friend's laptop or an old computer or whatever it is that you've got. Stick that in and go. It's not the kind of thing, in my experience, that you should be paying more for. I would save that money or actually spend that price difference on something like a larger cooler for the processor, that kind of thing, because generally larger means bigger fans mean slower speeds mean less decibels of noise. If you can hear any computer noise in here at all right now, that's from the streaming computer, which is only on while I do videos like this. The studio computer, the mix computer, has one fan in there. That's it, just one. But it's on a massive Noctua cooler. And the way that the system's set up, it's never getting alarmingly hot. It's just not. Actually, also, you can get graphics cards now if you want a specific separate graphics card that is either completely silent and fanless, or has a mode on it where unless you're stressing the graphics card, the fans don't even spin at all. That's how the studio computer's set now. It's got an RX 580 in there, and I don't think the fans have spun ever. But I did want that in there for my own personal reasons. You don't need a big graphics card or an expensive one for music production. But seeing as though I do, video production and this, I'm a slightly different story. But let's move on. Okay, I'll finish on a simple one, and then we'll do this probably again at Christmas. So from Danny, he says, do you miss playing live gigs? And for me, not really. I'm a studio guy, and I always have been. I enjoy working on my own time. Even when there's a band in, I can focus on getting the best out of them. That's always been my favourite thing to do, is to get the best out of a thing, rather than producing something from nothing. That's why you don't see very much songwriting or that kind of thing on the channel. That's why you don't see me performing originals very often, because that's really not my favourite thing to do. My favourite thing to do, and you should try and make your living, your favourite thing to do, is to take what somebody else has thought of, what somebody else has done, and make it the best that it can be. So, yeah, I did used to play these 3-hour shows in a wedding band, and that was fine. It definitely kept my playing chops up. I am a little bit rusty playing wise at the moment, that's for sure. And that would be nice to just be sharper at playing, and being able to do 3 hours of intense vocals in one go. Those are the kind of things that I'd really like to do, but the amount of work required to do that is energy that I would rather spend on doing this. So, not really. But just for clarity's sake, I stopped doing live gigs about a year ago. So long before the whole lockdown situation happened, I had already gotten out of the live music game. So it's not a reflection on anybody who does live music. If that's what you do and you're good at it, great. And hopefully you'll all get back to doing what you do very soon. Yeah, the global situation has affected us all. Like I said earlier, I can't even record bands right now, so I'm very much focusing on gear. I'm very much focusing on developing the layout of the studio, because I know there's not going to be a band in every 3 days, every 6 days. So I do have the space to do a lot of the setup. But now I'm almost at the point where I'm ready for bands to come in and take advantage of the new stuff. And there's no bands. So yeah, that'll change. But we just have to hold on and wait for that change. So, thank you everybody for watching. I hope you've really enjoyed this Q&A. I certainly have. And there'll be another one coming along very soon. If you haven't supported us on Patreon, please do, because it really helps us to be stable and keep the lights on, and not have to worry about what's happening next month. And thank you to everybody who is a patron. Thank you for your questions. Everybody who is a patron, next time, get them questions in, and I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye. Hey everyone, that might be the end of the video, but if you fancy carrying on this conversation, we have a Discord server, link is in the description. We're also on Patreon, which is something you can really help us with. We also are on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter at Hotpoll Studios. See you there.